Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Learn Linux TV. I'm here at 45 Drives HQ, and as part of the Creators Summit that's going on with 45 Drives, I gave a presentation on the 5 stages of switching to Linux. As part of that presentation, I also brought up some things that Linux doesn't do so well, and some other points about things such as managing expectations. So I think this is going to be of value to my audience, so I figured I would just take that presentation and throw it in a video and upload it for you guys, which is exactly what I've done. So let's check it out. So let's do this. So I'm going to just say first and foremost, I am a system administrator, DevOps, video editor, producer. I am not a presentation person. So I'm just going to, so I blame, anytime it looks good, I blame Canva. Anyway, so of course I have my company logo there. I'll get to that in a moment. But first of all, who am I? My name is Jay LaCroix. I've been using Linux for a while, 22 years or so. I mean, sometime in 2002, give it some change. But it was, I walked into a classroom, I was taking a Unix class, and loved it, and then this guy walked in and said, I'm doing a pilot Linux class. And I was already thinking about using Linux. I was interested in it. I signed up, and from that moment forward started everything that would happen since. So I've been using Linux for a while. But also I've been working in IT. Like many people, Windows admin and things like that. I mean, I went through all that. Like a lot of people, they don't start as Linux admins. I mean, they might now, but in the past, you kind of started in the Windows world and you kind of migrate over. So, but I appreciate that because I know the Windows side. I know what group policy is. I know how to edit it. I know how to manage that. So I feel like that kind of gives me a benefit there. But I've held roles from system administrators, system administration, DevOps, and I have management experience. I have a few certifications, and I'm sure I probably have a couple more, but it's not about that. It's, the reason why I mention certifications because it's important to know what people are going through when they get certified to understand what it is they need to learn. And also, before I was, at the YouTube channel, I always felt like a certification may or may not get you where you want to be at a job. It may not get you in the door. It may or may not get you a promotion. I know all the marketing materials will tell you that, but for me, with my ADHD, it was like, oh, I bought the voucher, I have a date on it, and I better learn it by that date. And it was super effective, and I got through it. So, a few certifications. Also, I've written 6 professionally published books. Mastering Ubuntu Server was recently named one of the best Ubuntu books of all time. It's currently up for another version. I'm in a contract negotiation right now, kind of trying to get the final bits on that, but I'll probably be updating that one. Too long didn't read. I know IT stuff, and I've used distributions you've never heard of, like Lycoris. Who has heard of Lycoris Linux? Wow, you are the first person ever.
Have I installed it? No.
But it's funny, Lycoris had a feature that is missing from Linux distributions now that has never been seen since. The installer took a while. So while you installed that Linux distribution, there was a full game of solitaire, fully playable. So while it's installing, I'm not even kidding you, you're just playing solitaire, just playing cards. I thought it was the most brilliant idea ever. I mean, the best thing other than that would have been like Galaga or Space Invaders while you're installing it. But I've tried distributions that have come and gone. I've seen the life cycle of a distribution where it's built up and it just falls over. Some, obviously still remain today. So, but that brings me to Learn Linux TV, which I think is what I'm going to be most famous for. Let's talk about that. So, I decided to resign from my position several years ago. I worked my way up to Director of IT Operations for, Adaptivist bought us out, but technically is a different company name. I was in charge of all the IT systems for the entire company, the security, all of it. I really loved my job. Like, I'm not going to say, like many of, I hated my job, I just had to get out of there. No, it was a hard decision. I had a lot of fun. But Learn Linux TV has since become one of, if not the largest Linux-focused learning platforms in existence. I mean, At one point I've had like 1,200 videos on there, but sometimes new videos replace old ones when I update them, so I don't really have the total count. If you look now, it says like 700 something. I think I crashed TubeBuddy because the metrics are actually not matching what I have. I've reached 700,000 subscribers so far, 45 million views, and I already mentioned a number of videos. So the thing about Learn Linux TV is that part of it came from opposition. I just didn't like the way things are being taught. I have an incredible difficulty learning. ADHD, 95th percentile. If I'm not medicated, you do not want to be around me, trust me. So it was hard for me to learn. But why was it hard to learn? Like, I'm trying to read a book on C++, which is already going to be boring, right? But here I am writing a mortgage calculator in the book, or I'm comparing objects to breeds of dog, you know, like there's class dog, and then if you have another class that inherits, I mean, it's just all these examples that just didn't really seem to work, and the instruction was just dry. So I wanted to try to do something where I could like teach people the way that I wanted to, but also cater to the people that want things to be torn down. So I get comments sometimes. I'll go through a 45-minute video installing how to install Nextcloud. Every single time I'll get a comment and it'll say something along the lines of, why didn't you use the Docker container? You've come to the wrong channel. This isn't for you. I mean, yes, I will teach you containers. I'll teach you everything you want to know, but my content is for people that want to know how it works. They want to see the database layer. How does that interact with the application? I want to show everything. But for visual learners, it's important that they have something. Like for me, I love to read and I love to write. I cannot learn from reading. It's just impossible. I have to get my hands on it. I have to tear it apart. I have to break it. I have to fix it. I have to write my own notes. So I wanted to create something that was going to be of value to other people. Something for me that I wish I would have had when I first started, because I had all the same problems. Why are there so many Linux distributions? Which one do I choose? Why won't my Wi-Fi work, for crying out loud? I've been through all that, and I wanted to help people out. So it's become a great place for Linux tutorials and related content. At least I like to think so. But let's switch to Linux, right? That's what this is about. I wanted to talk about 5 stages, and a lot of this is going to have some of the things that were talked about already, because there's just a lot of truths, and truths are truths no matter what, no matter who's telling them, so there's going to be overlap. But we're going to talk about the 5 stages of switching to Linux. But why? Why are we going to switch to Linux? What's in it for us? And I wanted to spend some time on this because you have situations where you have somebody who has a tech friend and they're all about Linux. You've got to try Linux. It's going to make your computer faster, your apps will work better, it'll give you more control, it'll save your marriage, it'll do everything, right? But the fact of the matter is, Linux does not do everything. And as I was taught, during the previous talk that we had, these people do a disservice to the Linux community because they say Linux works on everything. So if I'm a new person, I'm like, oh, okay, whatever junk computer I have laying around, it's just going to work. Cool. That sounds pretty cool. But then Wi-Fi doesn't work, and then it was a good experience on their machine, not a good experience on theirs. So I always feel like we need to meet the user where they're at. Like, if someone says, should I switch to Linux? First of all, what kind of hardware do you have? Let me look up your Wi-Fi card. I will personally check to find out if it works before you install it. But it's more than just that, because the operating system is everything. I mean, that's your life, that's your workflow, as we've been talking about. So when you make the decision to switch to Linux, you have to have a good reason. And the reason cannot be because your friend told you about it or you heard about it. You need a reason, you need a goal. What is your goal, and will Linux meet that goal? And I think that's always important, because I honestly don't want to see the world switch to Linux. I want Linux to always be high up, but if I had it my way, someone walks into a store, Best Buy, whatever, there's a Windows machine, there's a Mac, and there's a Linux machine. I want that to be a hard decision. I want them to have to spend some time making that decision, and I will never care which direction they go with, as long as they're making the right decision for themselves. So keeping that in mind, let's talk about that. Why would you want to do that? Linux puts you in the driver's seat. And I say, assuming you want to drive, and that's really important. Some people don't want to know how something works. They just want to get their job done. I mean, you take I don't know, randomly, a medical biller, okay? Do you think they're excited about operating systems? No, they're just trying to get their work done, and that's their use of their computer is just as an appliance. They think of their computer as a microwave. They make an investment, and they don't think about it the way that we want to. But if you want to be in the driver's seat, Linux will do that better than anything else. You'll have more control than you've ever wanted, and it's going to be surprising at first. But if that's you, you're going to love it. No corporate overhead for the most part. Sorry. Now the thing about the corporate overhead, for the most part, you look at Debian, it's run by the community. That's awesome, and there's many other community distributions, Rocky Linux, Alma Linux, there's a number of others, and those are noteworthy because they took a situation where the whole industry was in a jam and like, we got you. And in that case, we recovered. But then you have companies like Canonical where they're driving their distribution, and that's perfectly fine if you like Ubuntu in the direction they're going, but then you always have to keep in mind, if you like your corporate run distribution today, you might not like it tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And that's why I always tell people, when you choose a distribution, choose two, a plan A and a plan B. Get familiar with the first one, don't spend too much time on plan B, but just every now and then dabble with your second choice, because you never know. Your second choice might become your daily driver when you least expect it to. So anyway, there's lots of choice. I think we all know that. I just mentioned a lot of distributions that even I had to figure out when I first started where to go with that. And the class made it easy because the class went over Red Hat. Okay, we're using Red Hat. There's no decision, so that helped. But more importantly, your software obeys you. And this is something that I don't think people think enough of. How many here have a data plan? I don't care if it's your internet or your phone that has some kind of limit to where you're going to either be throttled or just cut off or overcharged. Like, yeah, I know there's going to be more than a few. So let me ask you this. When you loaded a web page and it's full of ads, who's paying for that bandwidth? You. Exactly. The computer is not obeying you. The companies want you to see ads. They don't want to spend the time to separate what was your request versus what was added for ad purposes, and now you're dinged because I went over. Well, how much of that was Google Ads' fault for that? But we have these questions. Like I talked earlier before this, where I had a situation, and this is what really did it for me. I'm in Michigan, before I got into the career. I'm like 19. I'm very poor, but I'm making it. I have a computer. It runs Windows XP. I reinstall Windows one too many times. I got to activate. I don't even have a phone, so I go down to the payphone, dial the 1-800 number with a piece of paper with all these things on it. Where I'm just asking myself, why am I going through this? Why am I having, I'm outside in the rain with a piece of paper, asking for permission to use my computer that I bought with my hard-earned college money that I really didn't have much of, and now I got to ask Microsoft for permission. And that was the day that I said I was going to migrate to Linux, because I want to use my computer whenever I want to, and I want it to obey me. And also, that's the biggest benefit. You get to hear everyone brag about running Arch. Of course, I joke. It's just one of those memes that if you're not into Linux, you have no idea what I'm talking about. But if you don't have any idea what I'm talking about, within a week you will hear that. I have a T-shirt for sale, by the way, if you really want to brag about that. But I digress.
You still run it?
Nice plug.
You don't run it anymore? No.
Distro hopper. Okay, absolutely. There's some things you should not do. Okay, absolutely do not rush into the migration. Take your time. Okay. If you rush, you're probably setting yourself up for failure. You need time to really explore, to kind of just, it's like in Michigan, you don't jump into the water. You just walk really slowly and spend about 15 minutes getting used to it because it's cold. I mean, just like with any other, thing in life, you got to take your time and when it's comfortable for you and just go at your own pace. Don't let anyone rush you. It's your experience and you need to own that. And this is really big here. Do not install Linux without testing all of your hardware first. And this is so annoying to me because how many times do I see in every forum, I guarantee you, pick a forum. There is going to be one topic within the first page. I installed Linux, Wi-Fi doesn't work. Mm-hmm. Did you not try Wi-Fi before hitting the install button? Because what people may not know, we have live media. Sure, you could play devil's advocate and say there are some circumstances where your Wi-Fi might work in live mode and not in the install. That's extremely rare. Yes, it does happen, but that doesn't account for like the thousands of people that are posting the same message, because we need to test it first. We have a live image. We could test it Ubuntu, whatever other distribution you want, Mint, whatever your flavor is. Test your Wi-Fi. And people don't think about this, but plug in a scanner. Do you have a scanner? Plug it in. Does it work? No? Okay, why? We need to figure that out in live mode first before you install it. If you have dual monitors, plug in your other monitor. Make sure that works. Make sure it has the resolution you want. Make sure it has the refresh rate, and everything is the way you want it. Don't just rush into the installation and be the guy or girl that's wondering why Wi-Fi doesn't work post-install. But here we are. Now, this is important too. Do not assume that whatever distro you try first is an example of any of the others. I have had somebody one time, she told me she hates Linux. Like, she gave it a try and didn't like it. Well, which one did you try? I don't know. Well, I don't know what distribution it is, but the fact is, if you try a distribution that's not desktop focused, you will have problems every single time, and your experience is going to be determined by your first choice distro, and your first choice might suck. I'm sorry, but it might. But if you keep trying them, eventually you're going to hit one, and this seems like it. I feel different about this one. It feels okay, and then you want to try it more. But you never should take your first impression as gospel, because considering some distributions barely even have anyone looking after them, let alone a community. We really need to keep that in mind. But most importantly, don't get discouraged. If you are in a point where you're starting to get discouraged, take a break. Do not let that discouragement continue and turn into a grudge. Just put it down, do something else, come back to it. Take care of yourself in your mind. Don't put yourself in a situation that's tedious. Just, again, it goes back to the first point. Don't rush into it. Take your time. But we need to have reasonable expectations. Not every computer runs Linux well. That's just the truth. And that's why I get so upset when someone says Linux works on everything. You're possibly setting people up for expectations that just won't happen. You have to understand there's like countless tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, I don't even know, combinations of hardware somebody might have. We cannot assume any operating system that exists today or exists tomorrow will run on everything. It's just not how computing works. We need to make informed decisions here. And this is going to be something that's going to maybe make some people angry, but I stand by this. So if your computer has a designed for Windows sticker on it, you have no reasonable expectation that any other operating system will work. I will repeat that. If your computer was designed for Windows, you should not think that anything else will work. If you have an HP computer, what did they do? They put it together, it's in a lab, they're looking at the permissions issues or the installing software, the sound card, or whatever's needed to make that work. If you install Windows on that same computer yourself, you're going to have 10 exclamation marks in the device manager, and you're going to have to source each one of those yourself. That's just an example of the work that the manufacturer does for you, okay? But if your computer was not designed for that operating system, not one single person QA'd it. Not one person is going to promise that it's going to work, which is also why I recommend, if you want a Linux computer, then why are you buying a Mac? Why are you buying Windows machines if you want to run Linux? Buy a Linux machine. Buy the machine that runs the operating system you want, that a company's responsible for, that they checked everything, there's a support number. We deserve that. Linux is great, but like any other operating system platform, it's not perfect. Okay, I'm the Linux guy. I'm telling you that this is not perfect. I mean, nothing is. Linux has flaws, and we talked about many of those flaws. There's so much work to do. But at the same time, I can also point flaws at other operating systems, and this is going to be a controversial opinion, but it is mine. No operating system is easier or harder to use than any other. I know that's going to be surprising, okay? But I will tell you a story. I had a friend that a young woman wanted a computer. I had one lying around, okay? Put Linux on it. Everything was fine. Told her how to use it. It was good. A couple years later, she calls me. Big problem. She's trying to help her friend with an MP3 player. She's using someone else's computer that runs Windows. She has never used Windows at that point. She was just getting into computing. Her only experience was Linux. So what was the problem she was so upset about? It was this. She plugged in the MP3 player and an icon did not appear on the desktop. So I explained to her, you go to My Computer, you go Start Menu, My Computer, you'll see an icon in there. That's the stupidest thing ever. Why am I going to have to click 3 times just to open an MP3 player? But this gives you an example of how what you start with colors your opinion of everything else. And every operating system is, I have problems with other operating systems too. Wendell was talking about having some issues with Microsoft Office. I'm a LibreOffice user. So one time I used Microsoft Office, it took me 30 minutes just to figure out how to effectively change the formatting in the same easy way that I do it in LibreOffice. LibreOffice, I have a whole, on this whole side is all my styles. I just one click. And then Microsoft Word is like, what, 3 to 5 clicks for the same thing? So my point is everyone likes to point the finger at Linux, but I could easily point the finger at any other operating system. Just like some Linux user, or some people complain, oh, you gotta use a command line, to use Linux. As a Windows admin, I had to use the command line regularly, okay? We had a Microsoft Office installer that was legal. This wasn't like a backdoor copy, this was purchased. You had to activate it over the command line. And when I took that job,
Office 2010.
possibly.
Yep.
So okay, I'm green and I come in there, I'm like, this cannot be right. Why do I have to use a command line on Windows? I call up Microsoft and they confirm the way that I'm doing it is the way that I'm supposed to do it. Yet everyone's gonna say you don't need the command line on Windows, that's just crap. Okay, that's crap. Anyone who's done sysadmin work needs a command line on all 3 of the operating systems. So obviously you're going to see some little branding here. I kind of forgot to mention this earlier. One of the things I like to do on my YouTube channel, and this here is done kind of in a similar format, I want to stand out. Learning is boring. Learning puts people to sleep. I want people to be engaged. So I try to make things look as amazing as I can. Things are animated, they're moving around, it keeps their attention throughout the entire thing. But there's a more important reason why I put this much work into my videos, and that is Linux deserves it. Linux has no marketing. When's the last time you saw a commercial on TV saying that you should try Linux? I haven't seen one. Maybe there's something like that in other countries where SUSE is more popular, but the point is, I am part of the marketing for Linux, and everyone is part of the marketing for Linux that decides to cover this or more focused on it like I am. So I approach it like Linux needs to look great. Because if we don't do it, no one else is going to do it. We represent it. We are the marketing. Let's make it look good. Why can't it? Anyway, stage 1, learn and explore. We're getting into those stages. You should try live Linux installation media, but I like Ventoy, and I know I can't remember the name of its alternative, so I don't really care what you use. I think it's Rufus, whatever it is, it's fine. Having a flash drive that has multiple distributions on it is a superpower because you could just keep rebooting into each one by one. You don't have to, burn or create a flash drive for each one by one. That takes forever. Just load them on a Ventoy. If you get in there and you try distribution, okay, they don't like it. You know what you do? Shut it down, put it in the flash drive, delete the ISO. Put it back in, try another one. Did you like it? No? Okay, delete it. And then keep going until the list of ISOs gets smaller and smaller, and you'll probably find the one you like. Now, experiment with available apps. I think that goes without saying, but you really do need to understand what the app ecosystem is and what's available, what the alternatives are. The Linux Crash Course series on my YouTube channel, it's a tutorial series that teaches you how to use Linux. It's currently approaching 70 episodes at this point. And any one of those episodes can be watched in any order because I wanted to generate this series. Like, you don't have to watch everything. I knew it was going to be massive. It's like, you want to learn a thing, you watch that one video. I have a video that goes over some of the applications, desktop environments, distributions, if you want some guidance on that. But leading right into that. Learn the basic differences between various distributions and desktop environments. You have live media, like I was mentioning. You try Ubuntu, I'm not going to call it GNOME because it's their version of GNOME. I kind of feel like the problem with GNOME is different on every distribution. If one is using vanilla GNOME, one's using a modified GNOME. It's like, what's GNOME? It's almost like the Android Samsung TouchWiz problem all over again, but it's the Linux version of that. Anyway, just test them out. You might like XFCE, you might like GNOME, you might like Mate. There's a number of them. In fact, it's probably unlikely the first interface you use you'll even like anyway, because maybe further on down the line you'll settle on something else. We kind of went over that already. Test Wi-Fi and test your screens, test your printers, test your gamepad. I mean, you really need to think about this. Connect your headphones to this. Bluetooth. I mean, make sure the stuff works. And the beauty of it is live mode doesn't change anything. Shut your computer down, you're back to where you were. You already learned what works, you can write down some notes, and then when you feel comfortable, you'll be in a better position. And now this one here seems like it's similar to what I was already saying, but this is something that people don't think about. Make sure it's stable. It's not enough for it to work with all your apps. Here's a challenge. Leave that live media running, disable, suspend. Let it run for a week straight without shutting down. You need to know that it's stable. I mean, what if you settle on something and it does everything you want, but then you can't keep it running because it's crashing constantly? You've just wasted your time and the entire migration. So just, I mean, abuse it. Run it for a week. Run something like M-Prime on it, a torture test, whatever you got to do. Put it through its paces. We have live mode. Why aren't more people using it? And test gaming performance if you're a gamer. I know this is tedious, but I've installed Steam in live mode, and I've downloaded games in live mode. I'm not going to tell you it's pretty, but at least I know a game's going to work or not before I actually install the operating system on my computer, so at least I'm saving myself some time. Okay, stage 3, we're kind of getting into a hybrid approach, and this is one of those things where someone may facepalm when I mention dual build, but we'll get to that. Now, we're going to talk now. Applications that are cross-platform are a special superpower, and I hate applications that aren't. We had a conversation earlier about Thunderbird. We can install Thunderbird on any operating system. So imagine if someone knows Thunderbird backwards and forwards, and then put them on a Linux machine with Thunderbird. They might not know anything they're doing, but once they see that Thunderbird icon and click on it, they're right at home because they know this because they're using it ahead of time. And I on my end, I just choose not to use apps that aren't cross-platform. I don't want to support them. If they want to just be laser-focused, let them be laser-focused, but we need community approach here. But the point is that the apps on Linux that are cross-platform, Firefox is Firefox. There are some differences I won't get into between them, but you won't notice them, I promise. Now there's Google Chrome, same thing. There's Microsoft Edge now. So, and there's all these different things. LibreOffice, I could go on. There's these apps that are cross-platform. Use them on your current platform. If you're running Windows or Mac, stay on that for now. Try to switch to the individual apps. And brownie points if you can sync all your data there first before you get there. Now that's really cool. Test your backups thoroughly. I don't want anyone to migrate to Linux and then find out they lost all their data in the process. Please test your backups before the migration. Maybe you're excited and you want to jump in, but make sure you can restore your files. Again, it should go without saying, but again, it just doesn't. Now, I personally don't like dual boots. Every operating system was designed to have a one-to-one relationship with the computer. They weren't designed for anything else. People get mad at Windows or Microsoft anytime it breaks dual boot. I don't, because this, it goes against what it's designed for. I mean, everyone knows Windows is designed to have a one-to-one relationship with the computer. Now, that doesn't mean I'm going to tell you not to do it. Just have reasonable expectations. A dual boot might be, even though I don't like it, it might be a good solution for you, and it might be the crutch that you need to make it to the other side. The only thing I'd caution you on is to make sure that you always have some understanding of how to repair the boot process anytime Windows decides that it wants to break that. Now, when it comes to actual migration, when it's time to migrate, let's talk about that. Back up all of your files. Won't spend too much time on that because I don't think I need to tell any of you anything about that. But this is important though. Image your current operating system drive on both of your machines. The machine you're going to be re-imaging and whatever you're coming from, just image all the things. But more importantly, if you have a toxic manufacturer that's going to slap your wrist if they find out and change the operating system, if you have an image of that operating system, they'll never know. They'll never know. And fun fact, the Warranty Act of 1975 says that no company is legally allowed to deny your warranty unless they can prove that your action was indeed the cause, but we don't have the legal budget to fight that, so everyone loses. But image your current operating system, restore that image, and then if you have to send it into the factory, just avoid the drama. I don't know why that's on there twice. And then more importantly, enjoy. Well, you have to,
It's that important.
you need backup so nice you gotta test them twice. That's right.
Any storage person.
Now, I like this part here because we gotta pay it forward. Okay, this is important. We've succeeded, we switched to Linux, everything's good. So now we just go about our life, right? No, help somebody. There's somebody that was where you are, right now. How do we do that? Join your distributions community. Help out in the forums, answer questions. And that's just a really great thing to do that would help them out. And I feel like even companies really have to have the mindset that, I've had companies that do have this mindset that they donate a portion of what they would have paid for the licensing. So if they're gonna have like $100,000 in licensing, even if they only can donate 5,000, 10,000, a small portion of that, imagine if every company did that. It would fund a ridiculous number of community projects. So companies can give back. They don't have to give back dollar for dollar. Obviously, it's about saving money, but if you're saving money, let's get some of that money back into the project that saved you the money in the first place. Now, help people out with their issues and be nice about it. Now, I have a very extreme, approach to this, but on my forums, an RTFM response is a bannable offense. You are not allowed to say RTFM. You either answer the question or you keep your mouth shut. Because my opinion on this is, you have a community that was set up to help, and you have a gatekeeper or a gatekeep between the person getting help and getting help. So why is this? And I tell people, and I get a little, and you might even find comments online if you Google it, where I'm like, and I literally tell people, if you don't like answering questions, why are you doing it? You can help in any other way. You are not helping here. The RTFM is just toxic. I don't even care if you're right. I don't even care if it's the first thing that's pinned on that list. You are pissing them off every single time. You are damaging their reputation. Stop. Either answer the questions or don't.
Yep.
And that's what I mean about being nice about it, because you also got to understand where they're at, because something might seem silly or just thinking, why on earth are they trying to do that? But you know what? Let them do it. They don't want to hear you should do this instead. No, they asked you about A, don't tell them about B, be nice. They want to know about something, let them know about it, help them out. But also test the distribution, report bugs. How many people have I seen that complain about a distribution just not working right, but they didn't even let anyone know? No. Obviously, you can't expect this from everyone, because the general users out there, you tell them the process to submit a bug, they're going to say no. They don't want to do that. But if you are somebody that knows how to do the process, I recommend you do it. And what you'll realize is that people constantly just work through the bug. They don't even report it. It's like, oh yeah, it fails all the time, but it works on the third try, and that's just their workflow.
Yeah.
And they don't let anyone know. They just accepted this, and then nothing gets reported.
The first step to acknowledging a problem exists, or to solving a problem, is acknowledging that it exists.
Absolutely. Contribute to documentation, and this is important for people that either don't know software engineering or just don't like that kind of thing. And document, you don't have to be a writer, okay? My first contribution to a Linux distribution was a 1-character typo in a README file. I guarantee you nobody noticed this fix, but I noticed this myself, and I'm like, well, it's right there on GitHub. They have all their stuff right there. It's okay. I sent it in, and they accepted it. But you don't really have to be, on the development side of things. You don't even have to know writing. I mean, obviously you don't want to submit something that's not good, but at least if you could contribute in some way, whether it's, testing what someone else wrote, making sure that it's still true today, because it's annoying when you look at a documentation article, here's looking at you, Azure, that doesn't even look like it does in reality anymore. It's completely changed, and nothing's in the position that they say it should be in, and you just have to, keep digging for something that should be right there. But if more people contributed to this, then we wouldn't really have this problem so much. Now, this was supposed to be on the previous slide. I don't know why it was here. I'm so sorry. Like I said, I'm not a presentation person, but this is a screenshot of boot repair right here. This is something you can install now. And if you're running a dual boot, get this installed now. Don't just make sure you at least have a live image where you can get this installed on. You have the instructions. It's just a few lines. You open it up in live mode. You hit the button, and it fixes your boot. It gets Windows booting again. Doesn't bother you with the details. It took 2 seconds when I ran this when I was just playing around with it. Now, here's some bonus tips, and here's some, and I consider these pro tips, but keep an open mind. I've seen people that will go through egregious links to get Wi-Fi cards working. They will have something they pulled down from GitHub and they put on their computer and they compile it from source, and they have to do this every single time the kernel updates. And God forbid if the distribution updates and the entire process doesn't now work in the first place. You know what I do? I open the bottom of the computer, I take the Wi-Fi chip, I throw that Realtek card in the trash, because we all know that's what it is anyway, and I buy an Intel card from eBay for $12. That's usually more powerful than the one that came in there, and most of the time, it's just 4 screws, lift the cover, take the thing off, put the thing in. And now, as long as it's a good Wi-Fi card, you will never need to bother with this again. Every distribution will work out of the box. And then it's funny because when I suggest people to do this, and I even have a video that I mentioned this, I got flamed for this as being a terrible solution. Sure, it's a lot of work, but I think as much work as it might be to learn how to open your computer, years of compiling a driver is not easier than replacing your Wi-Fi.
You haven't tried it on a recent computer, then, have you?
Yeah.
A lot of the newer Lenovo's are locked. They won't accept a different card.
That's a software lock. I was just about to mention that because I was going to mention that. Thank you for bringing it up, because there are some computers that will just not boot. At the BIOS level, they're detecting
they
a certain...
don't like the hardware swap.
Yeah, they're at the BIOS level, they're expecting either a model, something's written in the code, and to fix this, you're opening the case, you're putting wires on the board, and you're trying to hack the firmware. And that's going to be, unfortunately, something that is not really easy to work around, especially if you want to replace the BIOS with open source BIOS or risking, bricking your whole computer. There are going to be situations where you can't do that. HP also has had a history of that. I don't know if they still do that anymore.
I don't think HP does, but Dell and Lenovo are the 2 big ones right now.
Yeah.
Right now, okay, because Dell.
The companies are doing it more, ramping up. So as you buy modern hardware, it's become like a bigger issue.
That makes sense. I didn't know that about Dell because when I was in enterprise IT, they were like none of them had that problem.
Dell's getting a lot more locked down, especially their AMD servers are a lot more locked down.
Yeah. And my theory about why that's the case is because on the 10-point scale of the Windows activation, yes, I understand how it works. You get 10 points. If you have too many points different, like I think the Wi-Fi card or network card counts for 3 points, GPU is like 1 or 2. I think anything above 5 trips reactivation.
Motherboard's 10.
Probably, yeah, I can see that. Yeah, well, actually, it'll blue screen before it even gets to that point in the first place.
Actually, it's the network. It's per MAC address, and so if you replace a Bluetooth, that's two strikes right there.
That's even worse than I thought.
Yep.
So my thinking is probably they're trying to prevent Windows activation calls or something.
Oh, they're just trying to lock in their hardware. I mean, you just got to get a different BIOS. They can just key everything together. So the answer is is the Wi-Fi has a problem, buy another laptop.
Yeah.
I've always wondered that, like when you try out new hardware on Windows, and it's like, I changed hardware, and I wondered like, what's the ship of the
Ship of thesis.
Yep.
Yeah, like how many things can I change before it's technically the same computer as seen by Windows?
Just slowly over time.
Yeah, I didn't know about the point thing, so that's interesting.
Well, I don't think. I mean, there's so much of
helicopter.
Windows that's
Mesh.
not documented because when I was in that world, I mean, did anyone know that you can actually have Windows on a 32-bit system with more than 4 gigs of RAM? Did you know that?
Isn't there a patch for XP that did?
There might. So here's the thing.
Yeah.
People will say that you can't address more than 4
gigs.
gigabytes on a 32-bit system, which is just BS. You absolutely can. But Microsoft put it in a license that you had to pay for to get the courtesy of addressing more RAM, and then they decided they're not going to sell the license to anybody. They're going to keep it to themselves and just not allow anyone to have it and just make the common rule that this is the way it is. And then you have a bunch of people thinking that there's no way to get more than 4 gigs on a 32-bit system. I know, isn't that terrible?
Isn't that how Workstation Edition was born or something?
No.
Professional. That was one of the main differentiators.
Yeah.
Yes.
Professional can do it.
Yep.
That's what.
So, Imager Drive first. Clonezilla I wanted to mention as well because I like Clonezilla Live. There's 2 modes of Clonezilla. You can have a server. I hate that. Okay, just have a Samba share, or NFS share, and a flash drive with Clonezilla on it. That's all you need, and just give it the IP address. Or you could actually create a bootable USB. I don't know if anyone knows this. With Clonezilla, you could take an image of your computer. You could transform that image into something you could write to a flash drive. that'll then instantly wipe the computer, and all you do is say Y enter, and that's it. It's like a custom restore. But that's kind of like way out there. But the point is, image your drive first, because you never know, something could go wrong. And as I already mentioned, you need to have instructions for boot repair handy. Yes, you could get this installed, but you really kind of want the instructions for live mode, because that's what's going to save you. Live mode is going to be how you boot your computer in the first place.
Google it if your computer's.
And that's basically it. By that point, hopefully either A, you've switched to Linux and you love it, or you decided never to use Linux again. Either way, you gave it a shot. So. And there you go. I hope you enjoyed the presentation that I gave here at 45 Drives. I have more content from my time here coming in the near future, so be sure to subscribe to Learn Linux TV if you haven't already done that. I also have some content in the normal format that I filmed back home that you haven't seen yet, so I'll get to those as soon as I can, as soon as I'm back. But you know what? Subscribe to Learn Linux TV. I would really appreciate that. Let me know what you thought of the presentation down in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next video.